What up, gamers? Welcome back to another tier list with what boss is goated, and particularly for new players, for the noobs out there. Welcome, you guys. So hey, a few factors that we always consider in these tier lists is it, easy? Is it going to be rewarding? Is this something that's easy to get access to? And of course, are you going to have fun doing it? I love making these tier lists. Drop a like if you want to see another one, and also check out our Slayer Lock journey as well. And hey, that being said, all this is coming from an Iron Man's perspective. I'm not certainly any GOAT to the game, but I for sure know my way around the block at this point. And so take all this with a grain of salt. But with that being said, please do drop a like, leave a comment below on what you think I said that's absolutely mental. Maybe even share this with a friend. With that, subscribe, and let's hop on into our tier list of what boss is the best in OSRS for a noob. These are what you should be prioritizing, what you should be working towards, maybe versus other things. And so I actually want to start off with what prompted this video, which was my bro hitting me up that's new to the game. I'm so glad he's playing. He's like, what boss should I start working towards? There's a ton out there. Which one should I prioritize? And so I thought that was a great question, and I do think it's got to be Royal Titans. And then meanwhile, even though I'm someone that loves Slayer. Do not get me wrong, Slayer is amazing. It is great money. If you're at the mid game or at the late game, like this is something that of course you're going to be working on. But if you're new to this game, if you're a noob and someone tells you like, hey, you got to go kill Cerberus, man, great money, easy boss, and then you see that like, oh yeah, you need to have 90 in a skill to get to it, there's so many better bosses for you guys to be working on. So this is not what is the best boss, what's going to make you the most money, but rather if you're a noob. And that's going to be Royal Titans, man. This is a great thing for you to prioritize. If you will get nothing else out of this video, it is solid GP per hour. You can get away with gear, honestly, just like this. And I think the idea that you're able to do it with friends is just amazing. While for all of the Slayer bosses, you're going to be locked behind needing Slayer to be high enough to kill them. They're not exactly that challenging per se, but having to level a slow skill just to go and do these when there's other bosses out there that can still make you great money. Of course, you should be leveling Slayer, but you shouldn't be rushing Slayer just to get into bossing. So that's where I want to then pivot to some bosses you can do rather early on, which is these low-level wilderness bosses. In particular, just talking about the fanatics right here, is that like they're both easy to kill. You can get away with killing them with like a rune crossbow, for crying out loud. But you do have to know that in the wilderness, as a noob, you can lose your gear getting PK'd by somebody. And again, you can maybe make about a mil per hour, a little bit more with them, which isn't bad. But I would just say, like, look at the Chaos Fanatic, for example, which, again, personally my favorite. He is in single combat, so at least you never have to worry about getting, like, destroyed by a whole guild. And yeah, each kill, like, what, 30k, so it's not too bad. And bring in, like, a decent weapon. You'll be able to go about killing him probably with range. So the rune crossbow, for example, that's like a good starter gear here for you. It says, again, up to 75. You don't need 75 to start this, but again, it's certainly a good idea. Even just looking over here, toxic blowpipe, like that's a little excessive. You can get away with a dragon or rune crossbow. You'll be okay. It just might not be the fastest. But anywhere that you see a multi-combat like Scorpia, just say hell no to that, man. Don't waste your time with it. And again, you might be pushing right above 1 mil per hour doing this, but they're not too hard. It's a great entry boss, and just don't bring anything that you're not willing to lose, or just don't skull up and just make sure you don't click on anyone. But, so hey, now let's talk about some of these higher level wilderness bosses. In particular, these are the three that, yes, you do need to have the medium wilderness diary done in order to even access them. So I am factoring that in here. Also, I would even argue to put them even higher. That's why they're currently going to be lower than Royal Titans. Royal Titans, you can start them right away. There's nothing to stop you from fighting them. Of course, for all three here, better drops, more challenging, more engaging, more fun. You do need, again, arguably higher stats to fight them, but this is a much better example of what you're going to be experiencing end game. 2 mil per hour, and honestly, like, really rather fun. If you're going to the skeleton, all you need to do is bring a crush weapon. You can even get away with something like Monk's Robes. And yeah, Calvarion, he's just not that like hard, but it's fun. You have to kill his little like skeletons when they spawn, and then avoid the lightning. And other than that, it's as simple as just bring a crush weapon and you're gonna be fine. But boys, so now let's talk about the raid bosses, which you're like, wait, I didn't say anything about doing raids. I'm just a noob, man. So what's really cool about this, especially for Tombs of Amascut, is that you can customize Tombs of Amascut. You can turn on different indications, and basically if you have about this gear and about these stats, you can get away with it. It's not that hard. I definitely say you should at least try it. Meanwhile, when you look at Cox, it's a little bit harder, a lot more skill requirements. It is the first raid, so it kind of makes sense. And they all do give you good drops. If you're again going in with entry level, low indication, like you're really not going to be walking away getting yourselves like, you know, the twisted bow or the scythe, but they are fun. They are a good time. And I would say that this is something you should ultimately build your count around. Now, meanwhile, something you probably shouldn't be building your count around, or at least not worrying a whole lot about, at least in my opinion, is Desert Treasure 2. Desert Treasure 2, great quest. Came out relatively recently, all things considered. And of course, what's nice about it, which is why we're talking about it, is that it's got 4 distinct, unique bosses locked behind it. Once you've got Desert Treasure done, you're completely good to go about killing all these bosses that really do still have great money or GP per hour. And yeah, I think it's a fun time, but like look at all the stats that you need, all the quests you need just to get to these bosses, which do have some amazing hourly profit looking at the Leviathan, but he's also probably the hardest. Maybe I'm crazy in that. Do you guys disagree? But like Duke is probably the easiest. He's like kind of just a flinching tactic almost, but he actually does require some prep. So I don't really know. I would say low B makes sense here because yeah, you definitely are going to make some good money, better money than like the bosses above it. But on the flip side, this is going to take you way longer to get here. So that's just really my 2 cents on it. It's not something that I think you need to rush and build your count around. Like Desert Treasure 1, you're obviously going to do that because you want to get access to the ancient spell books. But Desert Treasure 2, getting access to some amazing bosses, great GP per hour, but they are rather hard, they are rather challenging. If anyone says, for example, that these things are entry level, like, you know, or an early boss for you or easy to do, they're lying. Like, they're, again, maybe Duke you could justify, but even then in this clip, man, like, this is max gear here. It is a rather simpler fight all things considered. And now we're at the God Wars bosses. So in particular, just throwing up the stats here for General Gardevoir. Man, dude, you get about like 3 mil per hour. You do have to run away from them. We're not even really going to talk about Nex because yes, Nex is one of them, but holy crap, higher requirements. You're basically never going to solo Nex. It's something that either you and people that clearly know what they're doing are going to do with you in a small team, or you're just going to go to masses, which is kind of boring and even then still has some rather high stat requirements. So sufficient to say, I would say let's just focus on the others here, and I would say that yeah, it kind of is your own preference. Again, I like killing Bandos. I think he's simple enough, and then obviously Saradomin's great, but again, it's really your call. Maybe Saradomin should be at the top. Maybe I'm triggering you guys with that. I don't know. But hey, anyway, moving on from the God Wars bosses, I think a really good segue here is actually some of the new content that we get by doing the Blue, Blood, and Eclipse. It is great that this is something that came in Valimar, really just in the past year, or well, more than a year ago now. And yeah, it is solo content, even though you do see other people there. It is just like an instance that you can, you know, see one another, which is a really cool way to do solo content, in my opinion, in an MMO. Yes, there is some prep that you have to do here, so like some skilling that you make your own resources. And again, versus then more traditional, killing the Dagannoth Kings, or even just Rex. Both of these sets of bosses will really set you up in the mid game, making you good money, not hard. You don't have to risk anything out in the wilderness, which is again why I kind of feel like it should be a little higher, and I think it's fair that it should be about here on this list. But anyway, here we are talking about 2 of the most iconic bosses possibly on this entire list. First being Scurious, only a year old just about, and yet this boss will teach you everything you need to know about the mechanics of bosses across OSRS, and is also one of the best ways to gain experience in the entire game. But because you really can't make any money, like quite literally maybe 100k per hour at Scurious, I don't know, I kind of struggled to have him like at the top of this. I like the idea of him up here because every noob should begin with Scurious, but I don't think he's the bread and butter. I don't think he's the thing that you should all be striving towards, when something like Zulrah clearly could be. Or again, if we're just going to say, hey, a one-stop shop boss for any noob account that's fun, that's engaging, that it matters, it might be more like this. So let's dive back into Valimor now as we fly back over there to talk about the 3 bosses that are waived base. Of course, being an instance, of course, first being the Colosseum. So why I love the Colosseum, other than the fact that obviously it's newer, is that you can actually make money here. This is something that you can theoretically access early in the game, but you're going to be stupid to do it. While if you compare this to the Inferno, if you compare this to Jad, is that you're really only walking away with a cape and I guess some, toggle to go and buy runes or whatever. So both of these, just even with that on its own, although they are iconic, although they are great for your account and they're great upgrades, they're not really things that you should be chasing as a noob. Certainly you should be getting your cheese cape sooner rather than later, but to again say you should go and do Jad like before Scurious is just kind of crazy, and it blows me away to see so many people say that, like even in guilds. That's rather nuts. Colosseum's amazing, you can make money there, but on the flip side, the reason why I can't put it too much higher than this is because even with like base 80 stats, you can be making a lot more money elsewhere. So S tier or maybe A tier, maybe Zolar should move even higher. Not fully sold yet, but we'll see. So boys, alright, now we're at the bread and butter of 2 of my favorite bosses, being one Sir Achnus, which is honestly a very slept on early game boss, and then the other being Skatizo. Maybe not exactly slept on, maybe not exactly the best boss, but for sure a good time. So both of these are in Greater Karen. Both of these are like, hey, they're not hard to kill. And honestly, Sir Achnus, probably one of the easiest bosses you can kill. But the money really isn't the best. And of course, for you to get access to Skatizo, you need to have built yourself your own little altar, dark art or altar, whatever they're called. So therefore, he has to stay down in C. I think Sir Achnus can certainly be higher up here, maybe B or even like lower A. But boy, that takes us then to the Phantom Muspo, man. So first, you got to do Secrets of the North, which yes, this is a master level quest, but it's really not that hard of one, and it is an amazing boss that you can make really solid GP hour at. But also, like, look at the mechanics here. So there's a lot of great mechanics from this that will prepare you for future bosses, and so that's where I actually wanted to bundle these 2 together, that this as well as the Corrupted Gauntlet are 2 great money makers for you to really strive for, maybe in the mid game, again, as a noob. Like, this is not something that you're going to be able to do right away at all, but if you're now a noob playing this game, you have some solid stats, you've completed some quests, these are 2 great bosses that, yes, like, should still fall behind Jad in my opinion. Jad is a bigger priority, it is a great upgrade, it's going to teach you a lot about the game, but you're not really making money per se with Jad. Both of these bosses, though, you are able to. It is 2 upgrades for your account that you should do, so I think here's a fair spot on the list, but what do you guys think? So boys, this next one's gonna probably get me in trouble, but we got ourselves the Nightmare, man. So I really enjoy the Nightmare. I think he gets a lot of bad rep. The money is really not bad, and neither is the stats, but it's a bit long of a boss. It's a bit time consuming. The drop table was upgraded, and there is masses for it too, which is a good time. He is a little harder for sure. There's really no quest requirements behind him, which is nice, but I can't really see him up much higher on this list because he does require higher stats. But there's some solid drops, especially if you're an Iron Man. And then meanwhile, let's talk about Yama, dude. So Yama gets a lot of love right now. Newest boss, well, second newest boss now into OSRS. And really what I would say with Yama is that with my limited experience with him, he's a pretty tough, boss. You need higher stats than this, but you can make some great money. And so that's where I feel like he kind of belongs down here with Desert Treasure 2 bosses and a little on the harder end. I think Leviathan's even easier, honestly. So I think this is fair. Honestly, let's shit this up a little bit too, because I do like the Kraken. Of all the Slayer bosses, he makes the most sense for a noob to be trying to kill. So let's just slide him up a little higher. Alright guys, as we wrap up this list today, we got the Hoikotl. I believe I'm saying that right. One of the newer bosses to the game over in Valimor. Yes, locked behind a few quests. And yeah, you can do it in masses, you can do it solo. You're not really going to be making a ton of money here, but again, that's pretty common for most early game bosses. Maybe we should technically say this is like mid game. About 800k an hour is what you should be expecting with decent stats, maybe a little bit less than that in this day and age. And yeah, I would say like right around in the B tier is good. I would personally still lean towards the God Wars dungeon bosses because they have higher potential. And then when we look at things like the Calphite Queen, again, one of the oldest bosses in the game. If you know anything about RuneScape, you should have heard of the Calphite Queen. A little annoying to deal with, a two-phase boss, so I think maybe a little higher in the A tier just because you can make more money. But I wanted to save Vorkath for last. I really do love him. I would say that Zulrah is generally speaking better, a little bit easier to get to, a little bit maybe more engaging of mechanics, but both of these are great cash cows for any noob to be prioritizing working towards. But yeah, Vorkath, a few extra quests. What do you guys think of this tier list? Leave the comments down below. Thank you so much for supporting and watching. Have a great day. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.